Just imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a crowded room surrounded by people, many of which have attended college at some point. Now, whether you're aware of it or not, over 70% of these people are affected by some form of student debt. Student debt is an extremely significant part of today's society. It affects an unprecedented amount of people and will continue to do so as long as we pursue higher education. I have the authority to inform you about this topic today based on the prior research I have done, how it has impacted people in my life, and how the knowledge that it will one day impact me makes me strive to learn as much about it as I can. Therefore, today I will inform you about student debt. First, I will tell you what student debt is and how it impacts the economy. Next, I will tell you the benefits of student debt. And lastly, I will tell you the negative role student debt can play in today's society. First, I will tell you what student debt is and how it impacts our economy. Student debt is a loan that is granted for educational funding and is expected to be paid back. Originally, student debt wasn't as popular as many of the people who went to college could afford to do so with the help of their family, which is from A History of Medical Student Debt, Observations and Implications for the Future of Medical Education. Now, over 40% of graduates now can't afford to pay back their student loans. As the amount of student debt increases and the amount of people going to college has increased. Because today, in our society, a high school degree is expected, but a college degree is preferred. And this in turn affects the economy because the rise of people going to high school is putting in more revenue into these colleges, which increases their gain, which affects our economy. Over 64% of graduates graduate with high student debt, found from The Burden of Borrowing, a report on the rising rates of student loan debt. Now that I have told you about what student debt is and how it affects our economy, I will proceed to tell you about the benefits of student debt. Student debt is beneficial because it allows people who may not be in the financial position to afford college to get an education. According to reports, colleges have widely increased the amount of people they allow funding to go towards. Everything from a variety of their race, their gender, and their financial status. The good news is you can get loans to cover almost as much of the expenses you're expected to pay, and these expenses will not be, for the most part, expected to be paid back until after graduation. Furthermore, student debt is beneficial because it allows the student to get some financial experience when handling expenses, as well as it increases revenue for the schools. So these schools in these communities that have an increase of students going there and getting an education allows the communities to flourish. And the schools that the student debt have the students to be repaid, it's usually fully in their name, and so when it comes the time for them to repay it, they are able to understand before the real world how to handle expenses and that kind of thing, which is from the student debt in the class of 2011. Now that I have told you about the benefits of student debt and exactly what it is, I will proceed to tell you how student debt can be negative. Student debt can be negative because there's this massive amount of money put on these students who feel all this pressure. They just got out of college, they're in a very scary, stressful part of their lives, and they're hit with this burden. They only have a limited amount of time after graduation to set up this payment plan and start paying back, which is found from A Burden of Borrowing. The amount of how much student debt has drastically increased, and this has caused students to take out multiple loans just to pay these back. And this is furthermore very negative connotation because this is the future of our society, looking for careers, going into the job field. And their personal success is the success of our future. for our world, for our country, for our economy. So this is extremely worrying. Students sometimes struggle with the day-to-day costs, much less adding this student debt on top of that when they're just trying to get an education, which some of this information was found from student debt in the class of 2011. In fact, many of these debts can go unpaid, but the ones that do get paid can take many, many years to do so, as they only have a limited amount of time to pay them back. Therefore, today I have informed you about student debt. It is a very complex system and can be difficult to understand, but I told you about what it is and its impact on the economy. Next, I told you about how it can be beneficial, and third, I told you about how it can be detrimental to our society. Now, picture this. You're back in the room from the beginning of the speech, surrounded by people. You are well aware of how student debt has affected almost each and every one of them, maybe even yourself included. Over $1 trillion are owed in student debt in the U.S. alone. I urge you to use what you learned in this speech and just be mindful and responsible if you ever have to deal with student debt. As they say, knowledge is power, and better yet, information and ignorance are like light and darkness. When light comes into your room, darkness must fly away. When information rules your mind, ignorance finds its way out.